Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and welcome back. This is one of the last Remy small art collages that I did. This one was called Planet Travelers. So if you want to see how this one was created, including the vintage sun, then you can go over to that video called Planet Travelers. I even show you how I did this wooden bird, how I decorated him with images and attached him to the page. So you can see all the different elements. So that's one of my last ones. And I'll show you another couple. So this one here was called Door of Hope, and the door opens to a swing in the midst of heaven. So I cut the door and then left this attached so that it could swing. But I attached an image to the back before I did that. And you can see this one's called Door of Hope. And I did show how I used a sponge technique to get the purple oxide ink onto the page. And I also used a stencil to darken the sky to make it a little bit more gloomy. So that's that one. And then I also, of course, I've shown this one before, the Fairies in Bloom. So, sit back, relax, and we are going to go over another Remy's small art page. And the book that I'm using is images from Fairies in Bloom. So you're gonna get to see some more from this beautiful book from Remy's small art. Okay, so we're going back to using this book. Now I've got some things I want to demonstrate. So I've got some things here. Now, in cutting out these beautiful images, I had some struggle. Of course, I had some struggle with the hair, but I was able to cut it as a grouping instead of individual strands. And I was able to cut out the white bits in between as well. So on this particular image, all of this was white. And I used a technique that Marta actually demonstrated recently. She said when you're wanting to cut out white inside of an image, like between 2 feet, cut the feet apart and then cut the white. And as you glue it down, the feet come back together. So her hand was attached to her dress. So what I did was I cut the dress, which severed the hand, then cut out the white parts in between, severing the leaf from her shoulder and around the arm. But I still had some little white bits, not only around her face, because I didn't want to cut too much, but also around the tips of her fingers. So you can see a little bit of the white. Hopefully that's coming into view on the tips of her fingers. So let me show you how to get rid of that. Your friend, vintage photo. Now what this does is it takes away the white from these images. And you have to be delicate. From these fingers. but it gives a golden glow. Because I didn't want to cut too much to make it look like a strange appendage. So I may not be able to get too much more white off of that. Without making it look like it's deformed. I also went around the face because the vintage photo will add a glow while getting rid of any white bits, like around the lips you may have left. And covers over. Also too in the flowers, it can cover over some white bits, some white edges you may have left. Around the wings. So use your vintage photo if you've got golden hues or if you're going around some skin. But if you've got darker hues and you're not going around skin, then I bring out my black soot. If you have another flesh color, which I do not, then use that. It will give a glow to the images that have skin and cover over any whiteness that you may have. So that's a trick that I discovered. I tried it and it worked. Now I will work with this piece a little bit later and you'll see why I left it intact. So we're going to be working with these beautiful images, and I wanted to get some things done before I glued down my main pieces. Now this little piece right here, I'm going to add a stamping to it because it's going to be nearly impossible once I get it affixed, and you're going to see why it's impossible. So I'm going to do it now and let it dry. Making sure it's got plenty of ink. And I've got a bit of paper that, let me get that off, so it doesn't end up marring the image. And it wants to stay put. Okay, I got it. Okay, so I wanted to get that done ahead of time because when I put this down, it's going to go in the crease and it's going to be hard to get that fixed block to get a good image on it. So we've got that done, and I'm going to start getting some of these images down. I hope everyone's having a good day. Enjoying a restful weekend. If you've had a 3-day weekend, it's wonderful. I happen to have one. Now, in this particular page, I'm actually going to create a problem for myself so you can see how I solve it, which is a little bit different than I normally do. I'm going to start just playing with these images to see how they're going to look. And the problem I'm creating for myself is this right here, this edge. It's a very sharp edge, so I'm doing it on purpose so you can see how I fix it. I have left some of this unglued on purpose because, as you see, I'm going to tuck this little beauty in. I've pre-cut the door to slide her in, and you can see that if I leave her on top, she's in front of the door. But I want her coming out from behind the door. So I have cut this piece so that I could slide her in. On purpose. And not only is she coming out from the door, but she looks like she's standing on the ground. Now, right now, she looks like she's floating, but I'm going to work it so that she's got a shadow underneath her foot. And I'll show you how I do that. Then that will ground her so that she's no longer floating. And this flower was meant to stand up, but not today. So remember, when you fussy cut your images, if you have some whiteness from an area that you didn't quite cut close enough, or you're afraid to cut too close, use your distressed inks on the edges and it will mask that whiteness. I'm going to go ahead and get this beauty down. Cutting around fingers and toes, branches, and such. Can be daunting. That's why I like to do it off camera, because I take so long to do it. I also make sure that I don't listen to something stressful while I'm fussy cutting, because that will make me hurry, cut corners, and I don't want to do that. So I usually choose something very pleasant, beautiful, relaxing to listen to when I'm fussy cutting. Don't be afraid to layer your images. It creates depth. It creates a detail that you wouldn't normally get. Now let's see. I want to get him down. His little leg is very delicate because I cut it very, very close. It was very dainty. In fact, it's almost not attached. So I've got to be very careful with him. As you can see, the stems were very tiny. So I'm going to put him with his foot on this doorway. You see how that came off just now? That's okay. We're gonna reattach his leg so he's not amputated. Sometimes you cut a little too close, and that's okay, you can fix it. So what I'm going to do, since that foot that is on that doorway, let me see how this, okay, I see it now. I'm gonna put the foot on the doorway. for a moment. And then I'm going to attach the bird himself to his own leg. Now this flower appears a little bit beyond the page. I don't mind the bird head being a little bit beyond the page, but the flower is beyond. We'll cut that off a little bit later. We're gonna give that a moment to tack, and let's make sure his leg is attached. Okay, so that's how you fix that if something falls apart. Just put it back together. Glue solves a whole lot of problems. Okay, I'm gonna put this beauty down next. I do want her wings on the page. And you see how layering these 3 images, how much depth and detail it adds to the collage. It also covers up areas of edges that you normally would want to blend with acrylics or some other way. You see how sharp this edge is? By layering this image on top, I get rid of that sharp edge. I did the same thing with her little face and this area of her skirt and her wings. I used the vintage photo. So she's got a glow, so you can't see any white because I did use the vintage photo around her as well. Sometimes I spend time fussy cutting an image, a lot of time, and I don't end up using it. And that's okay because it can be used on the next collage. Okay, now we've got him down. I want to do a flower-ectomy, but I want to cut it at the leaf so that it doesn't look like it was ever attached. I didn't want just a lone stem sitting out there. Now what I can do is add this flower in somewhere else. I don't have to get rid of it. It's already got glue on the back. It's good to go. So that's how you can problem solve areas that are empty. Just add a flower. That's what we're gonna do here. I've got that straight edge that I do not like. It's very harsh and very ugly. So I've got this flower here. And the reason why I haven't finished fussy cutting it out is you can see how I've cut it out. Not going just straight around like a round petal. I've actually created a frilly fringe on purpose. And so what I like to do on the flowers so they look more realistic, and Marta has these images already fluted or ruffled, and you just wiggle your scissors. And you don't have to follow her lines exactly, but if you wiggle your scissors slightly inside her line, then you come out with a flower that looks like that was the original lines that she created. She's even mentioned that too. Wiggle your scissors. So, by going over this door, that's what it looks like. But that doesn't look realistic to me. I want it growing out from behind the door. That's why I didn't put any glue on this guy right here. It's because I wanted that flower to be in there. Now I just have to position it how I want it to look. And without glue, you can kind of see how you want it to be. And so this is without the flower. You see how it's so blank and the edge is so sharp. And then when you add it, it adds some interest. The ruffles show up. You can pull it up a little bit. You can even put it onto the bird itself. So that adds a little bit more dimension. I've got too much on the edge here that I will need to trim. But I wanted to leave it like that until I got finished and comfortable with it. So let's get this beauty down. So this is how you can solve a problem that you've inadvertently created for yourself by having a harsh edge right here, because that's the image you wanted to use. And then the door comes up over it. And you can still see the beauty of the detail of the door. And I'm going to get this down so that it won't act like it wants to jump off the page. Okay. So there's that. Now I want to trim, and I've been playing. This is ugly, but ignore it. I've been playing what I was playing with to see how it would react is distressed inks with vinegar. I wanted to see if it had a reaction to it, and it did not. As you can see, it just looks like a mess. But I will use that for something else. This is going to be a play page. The reason is because it's cut so short that it's almost not desirable. Then I'm gotten to the middle of my journal where I have this huge gap. So these two will be play pages. So I'm gonna cut this off, and I'm gonna follow the raggedy edge of the journal page. These are hand-torn cotton pages. They are not paper. And so your distressed inks, your watercolors show up a little bit different. So before I do anything, I always have to swatch it so I can see how it's going to react with the technique I want to use. I play. If I don't like it, I just leave it, cover it over. So these pages are nice and soft and raggedy. They look like something from an ancient monastery, and that's why I love it. If I cut off a little bit too much, that's okay. There's not anything on that page. So now this is a perfect scrap that I will use. Oh, look, it followed the tree line. How cool is that? All right. I'm gonna cut this off a little bit. No, I'm not. It's perfect, it's fine. It works. Okay. I like it when things work out like that. So now this scrap I will use for something else. I'm not beyond tucking in some music under a flower, that kind of thing. Putting this on the edge of something. If I wanted to cover her over, I could put that on the edge, but I don't want to cover her over. I could put this on this edge, but I don't want to cover that flower. So I will use this for another project. Okay. Now, let's see what I want to do next. Okay. I'm going to cover over my oxides so they don't dry out. I'm going to go ahead and ground her foot. So you can see right now she's floating. Before I do that, I want to get a sip of water. These are my favorite pens that have really held true. Now this is where some decisions have to be made. A shadow is normally gray or black, depending on the intensity of the light that is shining down on the object. But with these soft colors, I don't want to go gray or black. It's a little bit too harsh. So I want to go along with the warm tones. So I'm going to choose a brown. I'm going to choose this brown. The brown will be less intrusive than the gray. So I want to make sure, and the shadow is not perfectly round, it's jagged. It's straight off from the object. I don't want to go too far. So a shadow can be soft or it can be bold. I'm adding a little bit to the foot so it blends, so it's not so stark. Okay, now I do want to do something else because I'm seeing something I'm not quite happy with. So I'm going to try something and see if I can get it. I'm going to try the gray, which is softer. I'm going to blend that darkness. Because I don't like how dark it is. So I'm going to blend that darkness out. Soften it up. And we'll add a little bit of dimension, which I like that much better. So if you've got too much dark, you can blend it. I thought this gray was gonna be the wrong color, but it actually would have worked now that I see it on the paper. And it's okay that I've got two colors for a shadow. It adds a little bit more depth than it otherwise normally would. Okay, so we've got that done. I'm happy with that. Sometimes I'll look at something and go, not happy, and then I'll want to change it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna play, and you guys can let me know in the comments if I've gotten away with it. So I've got a lid here. I like these lids better than my normal artistic tray that I normally use for colors because it's shallow and it cleans up real easily. So I'm just gonna pour some water, just a tad of water. Not too much. And I'm gonna use some gold watercolors. Now I got this set for a couple of dollars. And when I say a couple of dollars, I mean $2. So I'm gonna use a gold. I'm liking this gold right here. And I'm using a makeup brush that's chiseled. It's an old eyeshadow brush that I don't use because I don't have the eyeshadows anymore. And I'm just gonna go along and do some watercolor brushing in strategic areas to add some gold to these beauties. Almost like fairy dust. Some gold. It's not going to be a whole lot. And now I've got that alarm going off again. And I apologize. And this is just a rough going over. It's not anything major. Just a rough brushing. In little areas. And I apologize for that beeping. It would be much more traumatic if I went and reset it. It's a lot louder and more boisterous. And I got too much there. But that's okay. Because I got distracted with that beeping. I'm gonna close that door so that beeping is not so intense. So thank you for your patience. Ooh, I like that gold right there. As I'm brushing, it's taking off the cotton fibers. So that's the shedding that you're seeing. I'm gonna do a little bit. These little watercolors are so neat. I'm gonna do a little bit right in here. So it's not so white. The way the light is hitting this gold is so pretty. And you don't have to be perfect with it. Just swatch it on in strategic areas. Because it's got that shimmer to it, it just makes it beautiful. Okay. That is enough. Enough playtime. Okay. Now I need to come up with a title for this beautiful page. And I'm not quite sure what I'm going to title it at this time. So thank you so much for joining me and enjoying this process and all the different techniques that I did. I appreciate your time and your support, and I will see you on the next one.